lead partner for our life science industry. And I have the pleasure to moderate this morning a roundtable that's been called Using Big Data to Improve Healthcare Efficiency. With that, I have a very interesting and distinguished panel with me. Let me start off with making quick introductions for everyone. We have Dr. Evelyn Bischoff, starting with the lady on the panel. Evelyn is a professor at the Shanghai University of Medicine, and as well in Tel Aviv. And then she also practices and teaches at Renji University Hospital, Jiaotong, here in China. And she's also a physician at Human Longevity Incorporated, a company that's actually engaged and pioneer in human genome sequencing efforts. And I'm sure she'll have lots of things to say on that. Then we have Alex Zavorankov. Alex is the founder and CEO of In Silico Medicine, a clinical stage AI-powered biotech company. He's also professor at Buck Institute and research on aging. He raised several hundreds of millions of dollars for his various businesses and companies, and authored 160 peer-reviewed papers, as well as a number of theoretic programs that are all about discovery in human clinical trials. And he will, I'm sure, share a lot on his company and how they work with others and how platforms can help drug discovery going forward. And then my third panel member is Mr. Li Yingwei. Yingwei is a co-founder and chief scientific officer at iCarbon X Incorporated. He's also professor at the University of Surrey. And he's done a lot of research around data-driven genomics, system medicines, and how computerized systems and tools can help healthcare efficiency going forward. With these introductions being said, I have a first very generic question just to kick it off and make it easy for everyone. The topic of the day is around big data and improving healthcare efficiency. So I guess to each of you, maybe share with our audience here today when we see that big data is helping research, trials, various patient applications, but as well the distribution and drug access. So considering your background, how do you see opportunities and scenarios going forward, and how big data can actually help the healthcare efficiency going forward? Maybe Alex, can you start and give some view on that?
Sure, happy to. So first of all, AI is now commoditized and demonetized. So is big data. So the term has been around for now about 10 years, well, maybe 8 years after the deep learning revolution has started. And it penetrated on pretty much every area of healthcare, from the very early stage discovery, where you try to identify the protein target or decipher the mechanism of disease, all the way to the clinic where we're targeting the therapeutic towards a specific patient, and all the way to even prevention, identifying the early signs of disease, exploring the mechanisms of aging, and exploring how we become frail over time. So AI is not anything new. We've got many different types of AI, from very primitive feed-forward deep neural nets to very advanced generative models and transformer neural networks that are nowadays used to generate this beautiful art based on textual descriptions that are filling out your news feed constantly. So all of these techniques can be used as Lego blocks, even by high school students, and we've delivered AI solutions that were used by high school students to identify protein targets at professor level, and my vision for how to integrate AI into healthcare in general is to go as early as possible. So go into the mechanism of disease and identify how biological systems in time go from just normal state to disease state, and also how do they age, identify protein targets, and then discover therapeutics, novel chemistry with desired properties that can target those protein targets, that can perturb those protein targets, and then go all the way into the clinic, developing AI-driven biomarkers, and preferably use the same biomarkers that you've designed and trained to discover a target in order to target a therapeutic. Because otherwise you are just left with an arsenal of existing drugs that you would be targeting towards a specific patient. Or when you are talking about prevention, you will be using the same, advice that your mother can tell you as well, like don't overeat, starve from time to time, exercise, sleep, and diet, meditate, etc. So that's not enough. We need to go very early. We need to discover the new therapeutic modalities and new therapeutic targets using AI, and then go all the way. Unfortunately, this process takes decades. So sometimes, on average, it takes about 12 years to discover a novel therapeutic from the target all the way to clinical trial complete. We're trying to accelerate that with AI. And so far, my company, we've managed to discover a new target for fibrosis and age-associated this process, design a small molecule using AI for that target, and now we're in phase 1 clinical trials in humans. So, fingers crossed, if we get through phase 2 complete, it will be the world's first. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex. I think there's a lot of points that you commented on, and I'm sure we're going to come back on some of them. Yingwei, you are in the human genome space. What is your view here on the opportunities and scenarios going forward, and how big data can actually help the efficiency in the healthcare?
Yeah, so I agree to Alex. So I believe that the so-called big data or the AI is actually very much like the personal computer back to 1990s, something like that. I think that's about the right stage. So I believe maybe in like 20 years or 30 years, nobody will again talk about that whether we should use AI or big data in all of the business or all of the research and development. It's like a very much like a commodity that everybody could use in their routine life. So here I believe when we talk about the big data in healthcare we are actually talking about very different things. One of the big data that currently I think people are using a lot, and they are the data generated from the medical practice, from the operating of our whole healthcare systems, and that type of healthcare data, they are more focusing on the improve the efficiency of the medical practice, improves also the accuracy of the medical practice, so that people would enjoy more equal or more precise medical care. That's one thing that I think the most immediate outcome from the so-called big data or AI that are helping people like the imaging reading, this and that. But however, I believe the most valuable part from the healthcare big data is actually not on the practice part. It's more on the research part, because life is a very complex system that I believe that we could only use the big data or AI technology to really decipher that. So back to the biotech research and development, if we want to really develop new novel biomarkers, if we really want to understand new targets, and we're trying to get new molecules, no matter it's a small molecule or a biological, big molecule, or even gene therapy or cell therapies. I believe for that part, the biotech, biomedical development parts, I think it's about the right time. It's about right time that people should really put the new biomedical data and research data into this process. I think that's a second part that as a big data in healthcare would do. And there are third part is actually also mentioned in Alex's about the agent or in general health. In CarMax, we have a different view from the so-called healthcare. We believe medical care is very different from healthcare because healthcare is actually trying to preserve people's health so that you can prevent disease from happening. And medical care is actually trying to treat a problem that is already diagnosed in people. So the healthcare actually requires much more dimensions in data. You need to actually record people's basically everyday life, how they eat, how they sleep, how they exercise. That's a much wide range in people's life, and I believe that the healthcare big data, the term of that is actually being widened into this area. So I believe with the big data and AI being applied in a more generic way in our society, I think that we will reach an ultimate goal that we can actually use all of this data to help people to preserve health state and to help with the aging problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Yingwei. That's the concept and separating healthcare and Medicare and focusing on the prevention. I'm sure, Eva, you with your hat of physician, I'm sure you have as well a view here. I heard him saying that data is more research versus practical, but what's your thoughts here?
Well, I definitely would agree on the point that sick care and healthcare are getting now a big, let's say, crystallization where we are pretty clear now about where is the difference and that both parts are important. So coming from both ends, right? Extreme ends, being an oncologist in palliative care partially, right? An ICU, and then also longevity medicine physician. I kind of touch both, and I think still both are very important. We are already able with the sick care, with treating diseases and with the part of the simple prevention, so diagnose early diseases, able to extend life, which led us to the problem of silver tsunami and then gradually development of the field of longevity medicine based on gerosciences, aging research, mechanisms of it, and then really into the very deep granularity in understanding individual health of a person. And that includes, of course, now also the mining of big data. I would say a new generation of big data that would be longitudinal, clean, as inclusive as possible on as many potential biomarkers as possible, so as many factors as possible, starting from the omics all the way through the organs, through the cells, organ systems, up to the point of also factors outside of patient or a person that is influencing the epigenetics, and of course the mental and neurocerebral health. So we see that there is a huge number of extremely multimodal heterogeneous data. And I believe there is no way that human intelligence can make as good algorithms and trajectories out of this data. So we need a symbiosis. I think we see that already in the practice. So it's not something that will happen. It's something that is right here. It's a momentum, and practically we are already using a lot of AI in the practice. that was built on big data. So absolutely, I agree that it is important to have immediately the use of big data to mine better cohorts and biobanks, and also in the medical practice to be more prudent to implement AI as a support system, right, for the symbiosis of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and it's also happening. So I would hope that not only in the research those technologies and those databases will be useful, but also in the practical clinical aspect or areas, and especially also in this new nascent field of healthy longevity. And that's again also happening. We are living the momentum, so it's really the best time to discuss it as we are doing here, and discuss it in an interdisciplinary way. So having research people, AI, computational sciences, and clinicians being together with all the other players in the field is so crucial.
Thanks, Eva. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, putting it into the practice as well. I mean, I can't stop myself living here for 20 years already in China, that when we speak about big data, and I guess particularly these days here, it raises a question to me when data becomes really the oil of yesterday, I would say it this way. What is your views on how this health data should be actually accessible, open, or really treated as national treasures or secrets? Maybe Yingwei, I want to hear from you first on this.
Yeah, as a researcher, I'm very happy with all these regulations. To be sincere, however, I see this actually in a positive way. The key is now, I believe it's very good that all of the business silos, including governments, they realize that data is actually an asset. So it's very important because for us, most of the time we are very we're very limited to the data that we can access, and it's lots of data are actually lost during the whole process. So I think in the future, it's very important that all of the data can be connected as life goes, which is not happening today. So we can say that we have lots of wearable devices, this and that. However, from my business practice, actually, people are still very reluctant to wear this and that devices because they're not, that smart enough. So I guess for the whole of society, they realize that data is an asset, and people starting to they are kind of getting their own data assets that actually will help the whole research area and the business area to start to really gather the meaningful data assets and to use that and to generate good insights and to apply that in a good way. So although I think no researchers really likes the heavy regulations on data, but from the whole society point of view, I still see this the positive way. At least people start to aware that, okay, so here is very, very invaluable asset that is called data, and people should start to get their data. Everybody's data, they got some very big value, and people's data could help each other because we can help each other with our own data. So that's actually the very positive information I believe they're trying to convey.
Yeah, thanks, Yingwei. Alex, I mean, your company, I would, I guess, summarize that one of your business streams is actually using the data and giving it to others or working with others on data. So, you make that asset really worth for your company. So what is your view on how open that should be and how transportable data should be in this world these days?
Well, of course, I have the view as any researcher in biomedical sciences. I would want to see as much data to be open as possible and publicly available, publicly accessible, especially healthcare data. So people often have the misconception that the healthcare data can be used in a very malevolent way and can be hurtful to the individual. So far, since the human genome has been deciphered and published since the early 2000s, in 20 years, there were only very, very few cases where healthcare data was used for anything that was damaging. So currently, by the time I finish talking, there will be many, many cases where somebody's identity will be stolen, if somebody has access to your passport information or your credit card information. So that is much more sensitive data, and people are hurt. But so far, nobody has seen a case where somebody's genome was stolen and the person was hurt. So most of the time, the healthcare data can be used only for very good purposes, right? So for discovery. And many governments early recognized that the value of having this data to be in the open, especially the US government, we need to give them the credit. In the late 80s and 90s, they made a lot of public information available. So from research papers, so many of the research papers are now available through PubMed, including the data that is associated with those research papers. And we have calculated at Insilico that approximately $2 trillion worth of data, and we are following just the grant funding that the government is giving to the researchers around the world. Governments, of course, the National Institute of Health is the major funding body. So approximately $2 trillion is available for training, just from the grants perspective. And I think before we touch any data that is proprietary human data, you need to demonstrate the ability that your algorithm can perform very, very well on openly accessible public data. And there is massive repositories of this data, right? So that's why we publish so much at this point in time, right? We try to publish approximately 1 to 2 research papers a month, showing that the algorithms can perform very well on openly accessible data. And coming from PubMed and other data sources, of course, Gene Expression Omnibus, it's a huge repository, publicly available. And there are many, many other repositories. For example, the UK Biobank in the UK is probably the best and the first large-scale multi-omics, multi-data repository that both companies and researchers can access from all over the world. And that set the gold standard for how many data types can be integrated. You can train AI on this data. And afterward, you can use incremental data in individual countries from individual patients within the frameworks of the regulation in those countries to improve your algorithms. Also, another important technology that is currently available is called federated learning. So you can actually train AI models locally in each hospital and then just share those models around the world by fully anonymizing the data and also completely eliminating the individual aspect of data. So you just train the model, and then you can actually even share the features from this model already pre-processed. So the data collection and data processing can be done at the hospital without sharing the data, the personal information of the patients. So those technologies are available. We have a policy that, for example, in China, we do not use human human data at all, right? So you can actually use publicly available data, and in our case, we do drug discovery, so much of our data is animal data, and animals do not care whether their data is being shared or not. In some countries and regions, we need to be very, very careful with the data because the regulation is nowadays very strict, and you don't want to even touch the data very often. And very often you don't need to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Alex, thanks. That's very insightful. Eva, when it comes to you as a physician, and I heard you speaking a little bit about data will make healthcare, of course, more personalized, right? What about, what is your view on whether the more and more higher use of big data in healthcare, is that actually also giving more equity, to people, or actually because of data and systems behind that make it too expensive and less scalable? What is your view on that?
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for this question. I'm grateful that I'm being asked this question a lot, because I see coming from let's say a little bit more of a conservative healthcare / sick care systems, where we have a lot of inequities, all the way from sex, gender, ethnicity, through, of course, social status. I think in this new era of a better healthcare, of a more individualized, personalized healthcare, we will have a much higher level of equity if we have more inclusion from scratch on, and I do see that inclusion. So, for example, in the use of big data, there is already very good efforts to include all the factors that normally in the older times we would not automatically see being included. This is why, for example, in so many guidelines, we do not have directives for people over 65, simply because they were excluded from those trials. We don't see guidelines for pregnant women, for women in general, very often, for many ethnicities and minorities, and so on. So all those things can be solved in such a great way with AI. And there is also great efforts without too much of a debate, but more practical in how to conduct really responsible AI research for medical fields with inclusion of all those factors. I've been working a little bit, almost a decade, also on the inclusion of biofactors and biomarkers such as sex and gender, biological ones, in internal medicine. And once the train is already running, it's very, very hard to stop it and to hop on it or to add a wagon on it. Here we are really shaping the train and slowly rolling. So it's a very good and positive thing that it's happening. I'm often also asked, can everyone access a good healthcare and monitor themselves, mine their own data, or is it only for those who are more successful in their personal wealth? I believe that everybody can now monitor to a level that very reasonable data can be obtained, that can also really support individual optimization of a health span and performance. And this is happening. This ecosystem is right in place. And of course, as both of the speakers said here, I am a big proponent of the use of big data, both for the training of AI algorithms, for in clinical trial simulations to actually also then predict which trials will make sense, which not, to really accelerate the end phase of what is needed to be implemented in the clinic, which are the randomized clinical trials, so that we can have a good validation, good evidence base, and then ultimately also good guidelines, and a more individual approach for the patients.
Okay, thanks, Eva. I mean, time is flying. We just have about 5 to 6 minutes left. I'd like to move a little bit into the outlook now. And I think you, Alex, you started off with saying AI, and I think Yingru as well, is AI is commoditized these days. So I guess my question would then be, what is next? What's next on the plate to improve, further improve the efficiency of when we use big data in healthcare and for the benefit of patients, improving the general status of health and working more on prevention rather than treatment. Yingwei,
Yeah. So back to the original question. There is so we are all talking about how to use this data, but from our business practice, we are serving thousands of customers. They are actually paying to generate their own personal big data, multidimensional multiomics, this and that, to monitor their health state, and we are giving their interventions and to help them to aging more slowly. So in my point of view, other than all this research, all these technologies, it's very, very important that to improve the public awareness of the importance of health data. So they are people. Everyone is actually the real source for data generating. So that is a critical step that for all these technology developments or regulation developments or whatsoever. So I think the first thing is public awareness. That if it's not but it's certainly one of the most critical questions that all of the industry should start to address with the governments. So that's the first thing. So on the technology part, I think it's we are far beyond that we are leading. However, I think for the technology parts, because we haven't really seen really big data from billions of people with multiomics. So I think there are lots of challenges on computing. Maybe we need more advanced technologies, this and that. But for that part, I think still with all of the research scientists and engineers, I think that's quite a solvable problem. And third part is actually from the public sector, that they should realize that this is a trend that no one could stop. So I think so we should doing regulation in use that in good deed way, rather than this is something really dangerous. So that's my view.
Okay, Alex, what's your view on what's next?
What's next? I think that nowadays, when you already demonstrated that you can generate really valuable insights and products from data, so we've discovered novel therapeutics utilizing the data, and those therapeutics are extremely valuable. So now you are looking at more incremental advances in the amounts of data, the way you process it, the way you generate it. So I would say three major trends. I, of course, can name many others. So one is synthetic data generation from already existing data. So nowadays, just like you can use and create art, use AI to create art from text, you can now generate different data from with the desired properties. So you basically have generative data generation, synthetic data, or what you call digital twin. And nowadays, you can also have many different data types together. You can generate additional data types that the system has never even seen, right? And data types, not just incremental data. So I think that this is a major trend, and also in AI. So many algorithms are focused on generating much higher quality data, and those algorithms start understanding the fundamental human biology in time. So we've made quite a bit of progress in that area. Second, robotics. So the integration of AI and robotics is a big thing. So I spent the last 2.5 years building, well, designing, and now we're finalizing probably one of the world's, or if not maybe the world's most advanced target discovery, target validation lab, where we can generate really high quality deep phenotyping and gene expression, protein expression, methylation data types, including also deep phenotype multi-omics response to a variety of drugs, to a very large scale libraries, including the libraries that we synthesize ourselves using AI. And some of those labs can be 100% driven by AI. So there are no humans. No humans do not even get into those labs. And the third trend is China in general. So I am very, very passionate and bullish and hopeful about China. I think that now this region, so Greater China, has advanced so much that it is unstoppable. There are millions of scientists that can perform really amazing research at very high level. So in many areas, China is not behind. China is leading. Very often, they do not get really good ideas, so to speak, with a very big vision that does not return, the funding immediately. But once those ideas get into that region, they become products. So basically, that's the region where dreams come true. Okay. And in that region now, what you see is very similar to IT in the early 2000s. Now you can have designed in California, synthesized and tested in China because of the massive contract research organization infrastructure. So I think there will be many drugs coming out of China and servicing everybody on the planet. And that's actually the way to fix this geopolitical tension right now. So once everybody on the planet starts using China-designed, China-developed drugs to treat diseases, people will understand that collaboration is much better than competition.
Okay, Alex, thanks for that final and third view. Last but not least, Eva, but beyond what's next in your view, I also would like you to really ask what would be your dream to have when it comes to big data and improving health for people. Final words here.
Sure. So my vision, it also includes some of the dreams, right? And I think we need to be dreamers to advance anything and achieve at least a part of what we are really aiming for. And I think all of those efforts that were just mentioned are fueling into what my hope is in the medical field of best exploitation of big data, AI, and everything that is enforcing big data usage for the best. I think for me, it's really bringing all those innovations and inclusion of more and more data that is also at the same time being mined in a much better way, in a much more structured way, in a much more collaborative and coordinated way, without competition, without an over abuse of regulation and debates in some fields, and to use it to then it's really again very narrow as one individual at a specific point of time, to really be tridimensional, to really to have tools for a physician and partially also for a person to have tools to individually optimize the health of that specific person as early as possible, hopefully already at birth, when the aging is actually starting. And secondly, also to have a better access and accessibility of all those interventions to people. So I think big data will ultimately lead to the point that there will be ways developed by great engineers and scientists, as we see here, to have those solutions at home. One of the dreams is really to have your own pharmacy, right? And that you say good morning every single morning and give a sample of something that is very minimal interventional, such as urine or saliva, and to have the drug, the supplement, the specific target that the person is needed synthesized right there. And of course, I'm very passionate about the development of aging targeting substances and interventions. So, and I think for this we are no way around big data. So,
Eva, thanks a lot for this final remarks here. I'd like to thank the panel. I mean, certainly my big takeaway, or I guess what we would take as a conclusion, would be that with big data, and I think you, Eva, said this, the new era has started, and actually big data should actually enhance health equity, so to say, going forward. So I think that's very mindful and positive outlook. So with that, many thanks to the panel members. I appreciated you chatting with me this morning or this afternoon, and all the best. And I'm sure we'll have maybe new opportunities going forward to see each other. Thanks a lot.